welcome to another edition of Your Bridge to Addiction Resources with the People Chronicles and the Council on Chemical Abuse. My name is Jennifer Cowker, and I am your host for today's show. And with me, I have Dan, a member of the prevention staff at COCA. So Dan, thank you for coming. And can you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do with the council?
Sure. My name is Dan Fost. I'm a prevention specialist with the Council on Chemical Abuse. And my main job responsibilities there are to teach teens in technology, a class where we go into local schools and talk about the dangers of technology, how it can end up poorly, how it can end up being bad for some of the kids. I also deal with cigarette, tobacco enforcement within the county. There's just a whole bunch that I do behind the scenes. Those are the two main things. I'm also a person in long-term recovery. What that means to me is that I haven't had drugs or alcohol in the last 5.5 years. And in that period of time, what I've been able to do is address some of those issues that got me into recovery in the first place. But I've also been able to go back to grad school, earn a master's degree in social work from Kutztown University, obtain 3 really great jobs within the field, working both in treatment, case management, and now prevention. So awesome. I'm really excited about this opportunity with COCA. I was with COCA as an intern back during graduate studies, and I'm really excited now because it's a completely different level of social work practice, working more in meso and macro levels. So if we want to make changes on the micro level, working individually with people and their families, there has to be policy behind it to inform that practice. So that's why I'm really excited about this opportunity.
That's awesome. And you've just been the council for a few months now.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're busy doing a lot of different things.
Yes.
There's a lot going on in our office. So you've been doing teens and technology in the schools. And can you just tell me a little bit about the program?
Certainly.
What you talk about with the kids?
Certainly. Teens and Technology, the program is it's funded through the Problem Gambling Fund. So we do hit upon that aspect of the online gaming and gambling along with technology use, social media, video games. Kids like to talk about the video games. But we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, it's not all bad, obviously. There are great things going on with technology. You know, we live in a world now where we have all this information at our fingertips, and you know, IQ levels are up. We have all this information, you know, right at our fingertips. We can, just having all this stuff all at once, you know, in such easy access can be bad, but it can also be good. We talk about some of the bad things that can go on physically, you know, eye problems. I like to talk to the kids about getting the cell phone neck and the PlayStation thumb.
Carpal tunnel stuff.
Carpal tunnel, absolutely. You know, they seem to respond to those things. And then we get into the ugly side too, where obviously we get into the addiction, where we can get into being unable to differentiate reality from what's fake. An example I like to use, especially with the boys, is Grand Theft Auto. I mean, you probably not the best example to use, but you know, they respond to it.
There's a lot of kids who are, we see that being in the classroom. There's a lot of them at young ages, unfortunately, playing violent
Right. You know,
games.
something that we like to say in recovery is, you know, you got to meet them where they're at. So, you know, meeting these guys where they're at, these boys, they can identify with that. And, you know, some of them have considered, you know, maybe doing some unkosher things they've done in that video game in their real life. So it's really cool having these conversations with the kids in the schools. You know, you can see some of them, you can see the cogs and the gears start to spin in some of their heads. And the way in which we introduce the gambling aspect to it is, you know, we talk about the gambling definition. Anytime you make a wager or a bet with the possibility of losing something of value. So when I ask the kids what has value, certainly they say money, which is obvious. But you know, they also talk about their chains or their Jordans or their houses or things like that. And then, you know, and I'll say, well, what about your freedom? You know, what about your life? What about your time? which is the main point I want to drive home. Because when we get stuck with our technology, I know for me, because that's one thing about teaching this, is that I've kind of thought about my own use of technology and how I play video games. You know, in some cases, we're literally gambling our time away. And so when kids think about it from that aspect, you know, they're like, oh man, you know, like I've seen some of those kids like have a little bit of that aha moment.
Yeah.
There have been cases where there have been resistance, you know, where kids, you know, they may not want to take a look at their technology use or their gaming. And, you know, that's something I'm used to. That's actually something that I've dealt with, you know, pretty frequently working back in treatment. You know, that whole denial thing where, this isn't a problem, this isn't a problem. But, you know, working in prevention, the goal is to mitigate risk, enhance protection, and that's really what the whole thing is we go in and do one class. It's just a one-time class. We go in, talk about the dangers of addiction. We talk about the brain. We talk about the reward center of the brain, how you know, getting stuck on these, getting stuck with gambling or gaming or any type of process addiction hits the exact same part of the brain as drugs or alcohol. So it's informative, it's fun, the kids are involved, it's very interactive. We show a clip from The Big Bang Theory, which they get a kick out of, where where Penny runs into problems with her gaming addiction, and the kids get to pick out all the symptoms that they see. So they really respond to it. And I enjoy doing it. You know, it's a nice little break from the office. So,
well, and from because I was teaching the program last year and learning that this is something very new to education. Like, this is not something that's really being done all over the place. So what COCA has done is very specific to relating video games to gambling, because it's kind of, to us, it seems kind of obvious once you start thinking about it. But with the kids, it's really getting in at the ground level and talking to them about what that looks like and prevention end of it. So what have you gained from teaching this program in the classroom with the students? What
have I gained? Well, like I said, it's caused some introspection. Where I'm thinking, you know, we're all, you know, every once in a while after long day or something, I might go home and play some MLB The Show or some Madden or something, and then I'll be like, oh, wait a minute, I've been playing this game now for an hour, maybe it's time to put it away. I don't want to be too much of a hypocrite. So but also just the experience of interacting with the community. You know, I went to a suburban school, rural school. I went to Kutztown growing up. And so getting out into Northeast middle schools where I've gone, we've gone to Reading Intermediate, the Citadel. Okay. I've also gone to Ole Valley Middle School, which is more similar to where I grew up. So seeing the diversity of the students within our county, but they all can identify with what the subject matter is to some extent. You know, so it's increased my awareness personally. I get to see where the kids are today. And they're in such a unique spot, you know, because growing up, I didn't have a phone until I went to college. I didn't get my first PlayStation until I went into 12th grade and I could pay for it myself. You know, so younger and younger, these kids they're exposed to more and more, and it'll be really interesting to see in 10, 15 years, you know, what the long-term effects of all this, you know, exposure will be. So hopefully try to give them some information now so we could prevent some problems before they end up getting stuck.
Yeah, and there has been, it kind of seems like we're on the cusp of research coming out about technology addiction, because there are kids getting iPhones when they're, you know, in junior high or middle school, and kind of how they're reacting to that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I agree. I like to keep up on this stuff because it's scary to see how it's changing society, but it's also fascinating to see what kind of preventive end of things we can be doing. So is there anything else you'd like to share about the program or what you're doing at COCA with us, with our viewers?
Just, you know, you mentioned some of the research already coming out. There's been a couple things that, you know, I've taken interest in. And I just read on the internet this morning, Wall Street Journal article, the National Toxicology Program, which I guess is funded through NIH, National Institutes of Health, just did a 2.5-year-long study, $25 million, where they found that the level of radiation from cell phones, that RF radiation from cell phones, could be causing brain tumors in lab rats. So, that's kind of ominous.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly looking at, my cell phone usage. I tend to text more and speak on the speakerphone rather than right up to my head.
Yeah.
I don't know, I've kind of been doing that already. I don't know if I'm just a little, that's just my superstition or what. But there's also studies from the, it just left me. CSM.
Common Sense Media.
Common Sense Media, thank
Which
you.
is a great resource for parents. Anybody who's listening who's a parent or teacher, great reference, for studies.
There was one of their findings from one of their most recent studies was the potential. So this requires further study, but they're saying there might be a potential correlation, a causal a relationship between social media use and narcissism. Which, you just go on Facebook and read some comments, especially in this day and age, it can get really ugly.
Yeah.
When we talk about the human condition and growing and brain development, we need this face-to-face
Human
interactions
interaction,
so we can build that level of empathy and biologically gray matter in your brain. So when we talk about the bad and the ugly side of technology, this is potentially one of those parts. So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something that our kids, from being in the classroom too and talking to them, it's something that they may not think about at all. And when we're talking about prevention, like talking about brain tumors is not just maybe health issues, but then it's also addiction. So there's a lot of different things that we're hoping to educate on, because the ultimate goal is to have healthy kids and healthy society. So that's just something that we're excited to be a part of. So thank you for sharing about what you're doing with teens and technology, and maybe you'll hear something later if there's more stuff that comes up with all of this. If you want to learn more information about the Council on Chemical Abuse, you can visit our website or call our office. Thanks for tuning in. Check back every week for a new story with your Bridge to Addiction resources. You can call 610-376-8669 or visit online at cocaberks.org. COCABERKS.org. Be sure to like and follow the Council on Chemical Abuse on Facebook and Twitter.